Thanks for tuning in to Becoming Something, where we promise to keep the conversation honest and real for young adults in their 20s and 30s. Every moment we live is training for a future moment, and that's why we do this podcast, because we want you to be prepared for everything that life is going to throw at you. Our hope with this podcast is that it would help you become all that God desires you to be. So with that in mind, let's jump right in to this week's episode of Becoming Something.
What's up, podcast world? It's your boy JP in the podcast studio with Kathy.
What's up?
And David Blaine is here with us
Wow.
today. Guys, isn't
Not
that
true.
crazy? No, it's not. It's not. Is David a believer? Have you ever met him?
No, he's not.
He's not a believer.
No.
Man, what if he was? David, holler at your boy. Drew Worsham, guys. Drew Worsham is
Man.
here. He's do you ever is magician okay or is it illusion?
I tell people I'm a magician, but I'll usually say that I'm an illusionist for the
I
Christians.
feel like illusionist sounds cooler, I'll be honest.
It's
Does it
feels
feel
more
like you just said
confusing.
I'm a Satan worshiper? I mean, that's kind of
yes. Well, I think the popularity, like America's Got Talent and these TV shows, when
Yeah,
you say
you've seen it
magician,
more.
they're like,
Yeah.
oh, I get it.
Yeah.
If you say illusionist, they're like, what's that?
Yeah, I feel like too. I mean, in full transparency, I feel like illusionist lends itself to I want to figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
Where like magician allows me to suspend reality a little bit more
Yes.
and be like, yeah, absolutely.
And then what's mentalist? Because
Yeah, so that's the more the
also
genre
said-
that I'm in,
yeah.
and that is all the cerebral side of things, like the
like messing with
mind.
people's minds,
Yep.
like you did
Mind
just a minute ago.
reading,
Just
yep.
mine.
He has the ability. It's different spiritual gifts, right? Like some are evangelists,
Yeah.
prophecy, hospitality. He can see people's thoughts.
Yes,
I
mind
don't
reader.
know if I would want that skill, I'll be honest.
And can see-
So can we have him I don't know, prove himself?
Can you do something right now?
Yeah, we could try. Okay, so Kathy, we'll do this to you.
Yep.
And this is not like preset. You didn't tell me. We're not playing along, but usually our passcodes
Okay.
on our phones
Yep.
are very connected intimately to us.
Okay.
There's reasons
Okay.
because we need to be able to remember them. They're usually also connected to maybe like debit card pins and
Yep.
or old addresses or
You're trying to
birthdays,
get my
all
debit
of that
card
stuff.
pin,
So
you
I feel like
steal
he's.
my
I
money.
feel like he's already happening, even just the way he's talking.
Yes.
He kind of snapped
He's-
into like a soothing. Hey guys, and we're just here on the
And
radio.
he's snapping his fingers, and I'm in a
He's
trance.
getting. It's already.
grabbing your attention.
Okay, I'm here.
Okay, so if you're listening, this will not be as fun, but would you be okay if I borrow your phone?
Yeah.
Maybe you need to switch to YouTube right
Okay.
about now. and
Okay.
watch.
Yeah. Give me your phone.
Okay.
Ooh.
Well, is it okay if
Yeah,
I
yeah,
touch?
yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
I'm
so
just
it's
ruining
locked, and I'm sure it's got Face ID.
Yes, it does.
And so what I want to do is I'll flip it and try to break into your phone.
This is
Okay.
Okay, you have no way of knowing.
Um,
Do I need to tell you anything?
Nope, don't tell me anything. I want you to, it's a 4-digit number. I want you to just to think about the first digit.
Okay.
Usually it's somewhat connected to something that means something to us. Dates tend to be the most important. That's helpful there. So if we were to go, I'm not going to say it
Okay.
too much.
Yeah.
I'll say like the last two.
Okay.
Okay. Is that okay?
Yeah.
If I do that. JP, you don't have a clue what this is, or do you know?
No, I have no idea.
Okay.
Everybody's about to know Kathy's passcode.
I'll hide it.
Change
So I think the first is.
I say just tell them. Who cares?
I'm nervous. I want you to get it right, I'll be honest.
Ooh, that's not right actually.
Okay, so he
It's-
is
looking at me.
looking at Kathy's phone and looking at Kathy, reading her
This.
mind. They are separated by about 6 feet.
Okay, I got two numbers.
He's got two numbers in
Think
there.
of the second, the last two,
He's saying he's telling him to
Um,
think of the last two.
right here.
She's not doing it right, which is surprising.
I got
Not
an
at all.
8.
Yes.
Okay,
All right.
and then
This is
if this works, then it should open. I think the fourth one
Okay.
is.
He's about to put in the last of the four, which he's hovering over the 0, and
Shut
he just unlocked her phone.
What?
Unlocked her phone.
Check my text messages, honestly.
Yeah. That's
JP,
Wait,
you
wait,
immediately
no,
looked
no,
at her
no.
text messages.
How did you? How did you do that?
Yeah.
Because it's
I-
not connected to a date.
No, what is be
Honestly,
vague.
I had like a more specific passcode. Like Matt and I had the same one,
Yeah.
and then my kids guessed it,
Yeah.
and so I had to change it.
Yeah.
And I just went with
He
like
knew all
the
of
middle.
He knew that whole story.
No, you didn't.
Yeah, about how the kids changed and everything.
Well, how did you get there? Can you share it or not?
So there's obviously there's tricks.
Yeah.
Like I don't have like a special ability, but at the same time there's a
Oh,
lot of
don't ruin
psychology.
that.
No. Well,
There's no trick for that.
there's
like, I
the
didn't tell you anything.
psychology of.
There's
luckily, the pin there's only 10 buttons,
Yeah. 10 buttons.
and so you can kind of narrow
No,
down
but
one at a time.
there's no way to narrow that down.
Yeah.
I don't know how to send thoughts.
You just have to narrow it down. So you
One
had a
at a time.
1 out of 10 chance 4 times.
Yeah, but that's a pretty high.
What is that?
Low
What are the odds?
probability.
What would you say? That's
really
like,
low.
That's like, yeah, it's probably at least like
How
1 out
many
of
different
100.
combinations are
It's
there?
like 1 out of 100 probably odds.
Really?
Right?
I think more.
What would you guess?
I don't want to say because I think I'm stupid. I guess it's one of
I would guess like 1 in 10,000.
Yeah, it's very
One-
high.
Because of the 999.
1 in 4 to the
I don't-
9th power, 10th power.
Did you like get a number from me, or
yeah.
did you?
It was more confirmed by your facial expressions.
As he was guessing, you were giving him clues.
Yeah.
Oh, that's true. I'm pretty easy to read in my face. I know that.
Yeah, that was amazing.
That was awesome.
Thanks.
Okay.
On the
This
spot.
is cool. How did you get? Okay,
Yeah,
can I ask questions?
sure. Go ahead.
How did you get
That's what
into
do.
this like whole magic, mentalist, illusionist world?
Yeah. So I think like most kids.
Now, are you a Christian?
I am. Yes,
Okay,
this is true.
okay.
I do love Jesus.
Good.
It's a clarifier. So I was was a kid. I just thought it was cool. Watch specials on television, and then spent a summer, on JP, like in Vegas playing basketball, and it's the magic capital of the world.
Yeah.
And so I would go into these little shops, and I was so intrigued. And at the time, it felt like the art form was almost exclusively for kids who didn't play sports and didn't have friends. Okay, that makes sense.
You're
Yeah.
trying to say something without saying
So I
something.
feel like they were these magicians were like, "Whoa, come hang out with us.
Yeah.
Let us show you." So they kind of pull back the
Because you
curtain.
played basketball.
'Cause you were
Play
cool. is
basketball.
what
Like,
he's
like,
trying
it makes
to say.
sense that I like magic, right?
Yes.
Because I fit the
Oh.
bill. But you were a cool kid. I mean, you got
Play
that.
basketball?
I was on the team.
You're on the team.
Yeah.
That's fair. That counts. So bought like a few books and a few tricks, came back and was just, would just do it for fun. Like, it's kind of like buying a joke book. You're like, oh, I've got a few dad jokes. I'm not trying to like take it on the road and be a stand-up comedian.
Yeah.
And had a lady ask me to do her son's birthday party. And I was like, sure, I'll figure it out. At her son's birthday party, there's a lady who owns like a restaurant. It's like bar lounge. She's like, hey, would you be willing to come and do like table hopping? And I was like, yeah, I'll figure that out.
How old were you at this point?
So 17, 18.
Wow.
And then lady there is like, hey, I have an insurance company. Would you be willing to do our Christmas party? And I had just started following Jesus. So at the very end of this Christmas party, I mean, it was like, Jesus loves you, God bless. That was it. But there was a lady who worked at the insurance company that her husband was a youth pastor. And he goes, hey, would you be willing to come to our youth group? And so word started kind of spreading throughout East Texas. I went to school, studied psychology, thought I was going to do like marriage and family counseling. That was like my goal. But then I started combining the psychology with the magic to kind of step into the mentalism world, and then started traveling. So it was never the plan. It was just the door
next
opened,
step,
and I was like, yeah, that sounds fun. Let's do it. And then all of a sudden I was on tour, and yeah, the rest is history.
Man, that's wild. And now you're guessing Kathy's passcode.
You could do some damage with this
It-
skill. I'm just saying.
Yes.
Think about it. Like what? Let's
could probably
let's
guess
dream it
my
up right now.
social
What kind of
security
damage could he do?
I don't know. He
No,
could
I
like,
mean,
guess
truly.
people's PIN codes.
Sure, to your ATM,
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
right?
That's real. I thought you were making fun.
Is
of me.
it the same? No, it's probably the same as your. Right?
No.
Right?
No.
Is she lying to me?
I plead the fifth.
Yeah. He knows your pen.
I know.
That's what's crazy.
That's crazy.
Oh
It's
my
probably gonna-
goodness.
Yeah, you
Credit
could. I
card
mean, you
number.
could. The dark side is you can really
Yeah.
manipulate
Yeah.
people, and it's not. I mean, just since we're here, it's not unlike some of the tricks that you see with.
Prosperity teachers.
Yep.
Dude, I've seen,
faith
like,
healers.
Legit. Like it's legit. I've got a friend who, he's the pendulum swung too far away from that, he would be theologically cessationist, which I don't know where you're at on that. But because a part of his story was he had to go in and like prosecute these guys who had like earpieces and they're walking in and they're healing people, but it's all staged and whatnot. And so it's like, man, I mean, I feel like I know. I was gonna say I would just wonder how God feels about that when he sees the gathering and it's the worship music and it's all the thing and it's like they're charlatans, you know. What a weird phenomenon. And people come to the faith through that. That's what's crazy. Is like Jesus will use a Judas, you know.
Yeah.
It's wild.
No, it's very dark, very manipulative. It's also very similar to what you see with like tarot card readers, fortune tellers. You're essentially people are giving you information,
Really,
and then you're giving it back to them.
Yeah,
they feel like it's something special.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's very, very dark. So that's why I'm very clear with like, hey, this is a trick. This is entertainment. This is theater.
Yeah.
So you talk about curiosity is a conversation we've had before. I know that that's like a passion of yours is you feel like we should be more curious. But what do you think about the curiosity for darkness? Like that's the other side of the coin is I remember being, in high school and lost and I'd love to draw and I would just always draw fangs and blood and knives and just it seemed like there was like a fascination in me for the dark things. And I walked by the hobby store here in town, and they sell a Ouija board right at the hobby store, and it's like people buy that, I'm sure, out of curiosity, and they tell ghost stories and they want to go camping and walk through the cemetery. And what do you make of that?
Yeah, man. So I think our curiosity is a beautiful gift that God has given us. He's created us to be curious. And I think that the enemy,
of course,
takes any of God's gifts and loves to distort them and twist them. And we've talked about this in the past. I think there is, for people in that scenario, I think if they could be a little bit more curious, like even just like this, hey, why am I fascinated with this? Yeah. Why am I drawn to darker things or Ouija boards or, so curious about the demonic? I think that would actually drive us like into a healthy space versus just stopping and just being fascinated. Does that make sense? But I think it's definitely a tool of the enemy to distort our curiosity.
Well, because like my struggle, curiosity is a word I use a lot attached to sin because when I am rarely on Instagram. I say rarely. Let me strike that. I'm
That's not true.
I can't. No. What I was going to say, I can't think of the last time I'm like, hey, I want to go on Instagram and find nudity. Like I just really want to look at porn right now, and I'm going to go on Instagram and I'm going to find porn. Like that. That's what I'm going to do right now. It's premeditated, and I'm off to the races. But has been many times where like someone will follow me and I'm like, and you see this tiny little thumbnail of a person, and I'm like, I wonder, who is she? Oh wow! And then I am like, I don't like how do I know her, and why does she have 62,000 followers? And then you click and then it turns out she's a bikini model, and I'm like, wait, what am I doing? Yeah. And it's like, and I'll stop, kind of like wake up from that bad dream. It's like, what am I doing right now? And I'll text my guys like, hey guys, would you pray for me? I just like, here's what just happened. And the way that I would explain that experience, and it's not that has happened a lot. I'm not trying to save face right now. That has happened before though.
Yeah, totally.
Firsthand. And, I would describe it as curiosity. It's like, hey, I'm driven by curiosity that leads to a place. The old adage, curiosity killed the cat. So there's like another dark side to that. That's not just taking you toward the satanic dark realms, but also I think toward temptation.
And I feel like when I was growing up, even thinking about faith was like, don't be too curious. Almost like we could disprove the Bible if we like really looked into it, like I think I had that fear kind of growing up, like, I have this question, but if I pursue it, I see people who now don't love Jesus and they were, had the same question. So I kind of like would hide those and kind of keep them inside.
Yeah, I want to talk about that.
Yeah.
But let me ask you this
Yeah.
before we go too far down that, because I want to go there next. But do girls, women, is that like common? Like, would you describe a sinful pursuit as curious? Like, have you ever used that word?
I don't.
She's like, I don't remember sinning.
I haven't sinned in a while. I think the only reason I'm distracted right now is because lately my like life group has been pushing in on like a feeling I've been having or like whatever. They're like, hey, get curious about that. Like they've been encouraging me to ask God and bring those before the Lord. I would say that's a new thing. So I don't know if this is like I just push unwanted thoughts or feelings kind of away, questions. So maybe that's just my personality. But I don't think I would think of like, I think it makes sense to me that like, oh, I wonder what this is.
Yeah.
I would say I tend to like almost shy away from that. So I don't know if that's a girl thing or a Kathy thing.
So she was, okay. She was saying that I feel like some churches or in place of faith, it's almost condemned if you're too curious. Like, hey, we don't want to find the question that can't be answered.
Yes.
But I've heard you say to me, like, hey, I don't think we're curious enough. So what would you say?
Yeah. Like, I mean, so I think in the church, like we've taken stuff like, okay, hey, Genesis 3, this is what happens when, you're curious, that mankind was evicted from paradise because of their curiosity. Or like you just said, curiosity killed the cat. Or even like in Aesop's fables, you've got, curiosity flies you too close to the sun and then your wings melt and you die. And so in most cultures, there is that warning of curiosity. And my thoughts is I think that curiosity in many ways is it's a language of reformation. It's a language of change and transformation, but that could be really scary.
Yes.
And so it's also considered the language of rebellion. So if you don't ask questions, you don't push the status quo. If you don't ask why is that person king and why are they doing these things, then you just fall in line.
Yes.
So don't be curious. Don't ask questions. But I think if you go back to Genesis, 2, that God creates Adam and Eve to be curious, and that curiosity is, it's the curiosity about the divine that would drive intimacy in that relationship, curiosity about each other that would allow relationship. The most intimate form of relationship is, Adam being curious about Eve, or even his curiosity about the animals that would lead to creativity and what he puts to his hands. But then when Satan steps in, that curiosity it's distorted, and it's, I would say, like I said, it's shallow. Because I think being curious, I think it's natural to be curious about the human body. It's natural to be curious about, I wonder if I took that drug, what that would do to my body. Yeah. But if we stop there and then we're clicking, or we're in, an extra relationship outside of our marriage, then I don't think we were curious enough to go, okay, first, why am I wrestling with this? Why is this feeling here? Maybe be curious that if I were to go down that path, where does it lead? Okay, let me be curious about, God, what are you actually inviting me into? And what would obedience look like? What would, trusting you and living life and life to the fullest, like those are really curious questions. Or the Bible used words like wrestle. Yeah. To wrestle with the Lord. And or even another word for curious is seek. Yeah. And the Lord says, you'll seek me and you'll find me. Yeah. When you see me with all your heart. So there's this, be curious about the things of the Lord. But I think we usually settle for shallow.
So I just want to make sure I understand. You're saying that that it's almost like we're not curious enough. In that, are you kind of jujitsuing that, where it's like, all right, I'm curious, I'm following this because I want to see who this is. I'm curious, but it's like I should say, I'm so curious. I'm curious what would happen if I didn't do this, and I'm curious if I would, instead of this, I sought the things of God. I'm curious what good God has for me if I don't continue in this path. 1 Corinthians 10, I always get it confused whether it's 13 or 31, but I think it's 13. No temptation has seized you except what is common to man, and God is faithful. He will not allow you to be tempted beyond what you can bear. And when you are, he will provide a way out so that you can stand up under it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that maybe we should be curious as to what the way out is.
Yeah.
Is that
and as you were just talking, I immediately thought of like 2 Corinthians 10, like take every thought captive.
Yeah.
Whoa. Well, I
That's
think
what you did with Kathy.
we normally, yes.
Her thought captive.
Thank you.
Take
I
those
need a
thoughts.
lot of help with that.
And I think we take those and we go, that means to erase.
No.
Like we just, I want to erase this thought versus to take it captive and to go, where is that coming from? Why am I drawn to this image online? Is there a loneliness
Yeah.
I'm trying to cure? Is there something I'm trying to cope with? Is there something I'm medicating? What's on the other end of this? Oh, actually probably more loneliness,
Yeah.
more disappointment. But we don't do that. We stop it and we let that spark of curiosity go, now the flesh is in control,
Yeah.
and step in. And so,
That's so helpful. I have like a million questions.
What's helpful?
yeah.
You said,
Well,
let me hear it in your words.
No, that's good because I think when we don't get curious about the underlying heart issue behind a behavior of sin or the sin pattern in our lives, we miss opportunity for God to heal that moment. Like I think, you probably did confess and repented. It's great. You might down the road be tempted in that exact same way if you don't get to the heart of why you were drawn in that way and then asking God to heal that specific loneliness or despair or whatever reason you're coping with. I just think someone's be like,
My co-host.
What?
My co-host is difficult.
Yeah, Nate's the worst. But like I think we just like put Band-Aids on our sin sometimes instead of like getting the knife and like cutting out the infection.
Yeah.
I'm not a doctor, but like however you like really dig it out.
The way you just cut out the infection.
And the Band-Aid's going to fall off and it's going to scab over and then it's going to get picked again and you're just going to like be finding yourself in the same thing all the time. That's why I think like regeneration programs like that actually help you get underneath the surface of what's going on is really good. So be curious about what you're tempted with.
Yeah.
And then I want to ask specifically about, like I said, growing up, curiosity in terms of faith was almost like a don't do it because it could lead you to a place you don't want to be. What would you say to people like me? I'm assuming I'm not the only one who has questions about my faith, questions about the Bible. What is curiosity a good thing? And that, can you ever be too curious?
I don't. That's a good question.
Okay.
I don't think so. That's
Okay.
my first answer. I may say something different later.
Spencer, let's make sure we edit that out.
Yes, cut it out. No, I don't think so. I think the question is either Jesus is real or he's not.
Yeah.
And if he is real, there's no amount of searching or curiosity that's going to get to the end
Yeah.
of that. And so I think sadly sometimes we're nervous to be curious because if you start digging around, you might be disillusioned, which I think is a major lack of faith.
Yeah.
Versus going, be so curious.
So let me ask you on that. So this is a real question. So I agree with you, right? Like I hate the facade of Christianity where we're all playing games and we're like, hey, but whatever you do, don't look in that door because you're going to see like, what is it? Like the Wizard of Oz, right? Don't look behind. You're just going to see that somebody's just pulling strings and levers and it's all a sham. And like that, man, I have such a great disdain in my heart for that. Like I believe there's a God, he's sovereign. He created the heavens and the earth, and that anybody who looks for him is going to find him through his son, Jesus Christ, and the power of the Holy Spirit. And so I believe that. And I think we are so much more programmable than we realize at the same time. And that, you can read Richard Dawkins' God Delusion. I'm not afraid of you reading Richard Dawkins' God Delusion, but if you go on this deconstruction journey and you're all you do is you just start reading, the oracles of atheists, like it's gonna take you to a bad place. Yeah. And so there has to be some difference there too of just being mindful. Like if I just listen, like I used to listen to a lot of gangster rap, right? And so, man, all of a sudden, if I'm objectifying women and, I start dropping the F-bomb, it's like, man, I've been systematically going to that university where I did that. And so before I was a believer, like that was my whole world, that was what it revolved around. And now I want to, do not conform any longer to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Set your mind on the things above. So now I'm trying to set my mind on the things above. So I think there is a separation of curiosity and inputs.
Yeah.
And so to be mindful, hey, you don't need to fear curiosity, but you do want to be mindful of what you're pursuing in your curiosity and what you're filling your mind with, if that makes sense.
So good. Because if you just, case in point, social media, or news outlets, if you're only, listening to one side, left side, right side.
Who are you voting for, by the way?
No. But well played. But I think if you're just then indoctrinated by one set of beliefs, and I think you're so right. We're easily manipulated, easily programmed, and so to go, okay, I think it's healthy to look at one side and go, why is my grandmother voting this way? Why is she posting this on Facebook? Okay, I'm going to be curious, not judgmental. Those are a big difference.
Yeah.
But then also maybe it's like my not yet believing friends who are over here in this camp. I'm curious, but you're still anchored. Versus like jumping into like
I think that's the hard part with someone who's questioning their faith is they feel like this thing that they have had an anchor in for forever is all of a sudden floating up. Yeah. That's where I think questioning faith gets really scary, because if you actually pursue questions, like the thing that you've always believed in could dismantle, which I don't think it is. But I think that's why people get scared, and so they don't approach it. How could someone question their faith well? Like, what would that look like? I'm asking kind of both of you guys. Yeah. Like, what does it look like to be curious? I hear you guys saying, like, don't just, like, listen to one camp and not the other. But, like, what do you say to the person who's 25 and questioning, really, for the first time?
I'll let you think on it, and I'll just say to you, I said on Friday Q&A this past week, doubt your doubts. You'll pursue the answers to your questions. And then a mutual friend of ours, responded. I thought it was really good. And she just said, hey, but also like be okay. And where some of those questions where you can't find answers under the sun, if it is in the realm of the mysteries of God. I thought that was really good feedback. I think that, there's a lot of people that assume their questions don't have answers. And there's great sites out there like gotquestions.org, carm.org, carm.org, probe.org, answersingenesis.com. So we've never had more resources in any time in history to help us find the answers to the questions. So we're kind of left with that excuse. And, his ways are not our ways, right? His foolishness is wiser than our wisdom. His weakness is stronger than our strength. And so there is going to be this part where we're like, hey, there are things of God that I don't completely, like, how does free will and predestination, sovereignty, how do those coincide? I'm like, man, there's a mystery there that I have to be okay with and hold in tension. So that's the way I would answer that.
That's good.
Yeah, that's so good. I think community is massive. I think when we isolate ourselves, we go on this like alone adventure, and I think rarely we invite other people into that to go, hey, walk with me. If I start going crazy or only reading one side, or that's why that's I think one of the beauties of the church. To be able to wrestle and be okay with that, and let's give space for that, be safe for that. So I think that's one. I think so many people who, that shallow curiosity that leads to things kind of falling apart, do it isolated, both from community and also from the Lord. Yes. I think if we were really honest and we came to the Lord and hey, I'm wrestling with this. This doesn't make sense. I can't put two and two together. I think it would be a totally different game. I think we see in the Psalms, you got King David, who is borderline schizophrenic, and he's just all over the place, but he's so raw and honest with the Lord. And I think that because of that honesty with his questions and his wrestle, his disappointment, that God will go, yeah, that one is a man after my heart. Because
he
he's real.
brings it to the Lord.
Yeah, versus being isolated. And if he would have just sat there in his, his throne room and just wrestled by himself.
Or just played the game. That's the thing. It's like, I think
pretended,
there's a lot of people like pretending like it's Pollyanna, like everything is fine when they're just burning down on the inside. They pull the shutters,
One thing that really helped me, like I said, I pushed away all my questions till I think I got to seminary, and I was like, overwhelmed with the creation accounts in particular. Really stressed me out. But I remember,
Genesis.
like reading them back to back, I was like, oh, yeah. I had a professor, my favorite professor. He was so kind because he could just see, like I said, you can read everything on my face. And he goes, Kathy, I want you to know I've had every single one of the questions that you have. And I am like fully following God, and I am full of faith. You can too. I think that's why it is so important to bring other people in to hear, your questions are valid. Like, it's okay that you have those questions. Me too.
What
I've
did you
had
impress them with? I'm just so curious.
Well, I hadn't read the creation accounts back to back, and I can't remember what it was, but it's like, God creates all people.
In 6 days?
Yeah, and then the next chapter is like he creates like Adam, and then I don't know. I can't remember. It was
Okay, I got you.
a while ago, but it was just back to back. Something in there triggered me. And I think people need to hear it's okay. And I've had those questions too, and I still have faith. So that's why it's important to bring other people in.
Yeah. I want to ask you, what's the I'm changing gears, but has something ever gone like terribly wrong in your performance, like unrecoverable?
I feel like you're setting me up.
No, I'm not.
No, I don't know this. Yes, I have multiple.
Well, I was late yesterday.
It happens a lot because mentalism is like the jazz music of magic, because you're stepping in. I don't know how this is going to go.
Right.
You hand me the phone. We could totally get it wrong.
Wow.
And then you're like, okay. Versus like a card trick you practice.
Yeah.
There's a rhythm, a beat to it. So I used to do this trick. Used to is a key word. That it was a roulette routine. And so it had this 12-inch spike, and it was, the spectator could move it and put it in one of 4 locations. Then paper sacks were put over all 4 locations.
Okay, wait, let's start over. I want to make sure I get it. It's a 12-inch spike, and what now?
Yeah, so a 12-inch spike, probably about the size of your finger.
Okay.
And so it's like on this device. So it could be in spot A, B, C, or D.
Okay.
Then
you got a 12-inch spike that's going to be in one of 4 places, like a nail,
like a giant nail.
Oh my!
Yeah.
Okay.
So the spectator comes up, and they get to move it and put it in whatever spot they want.
Yeah.
And while they're doing that, I'm blindfolded, and a bag is put over my head and tied, so I can't peek.
Wow.
Bags are there,
Also can't.
and they shuffle it again. So from the audience perspective, there's 4 bags. Underneath one of them is a 12-inch spike.
Okay.
Like pointing straight up.
Oh, goodness.
This is a bad idea.
Yes.
This is not.
So the trick is...
Is that how you got this scar?
Yeah.
Okay.
The lightning scar on the forehead. I'm just kidding. I smashed 3 of the bags. Ta-da. The last one is where the spike was.
Right.
So I've done this for about a year and a half on tour. I'm in Dallas, actually, so somewhat local. Smash a bag, smash another one, and there's 2 left.
No, I can't listen.
And I swing for the fences.
No.
And in the first time I'm doing this trick, I feel my hands stop.
No.
Pause. And alarms are going off in my head. I untie the bag, take the blindfold off. True story. I looked down, and 6 inches of that spike was sticking out the back of my head.
No.
How did you make it through 6 inches?
No.
So immediately, so that's
What
there's a
hand?
mistake.
That
This is
can't
my
be
left
true.
hand. Swear, yeah. You can see the scar right here.
No.
Tilted right there.
Oh my goodness. I feel like you're messing with me.
No, I swear. So I
cannot
immediately
believe- I'm so glad I asked.
adrenaline kicks in. And JB, you guys know any especially with an audience.
Oh my gosh.
You-
I'm so weirded out right now.
There is a rule, which is whether it's preaching or whatever, the show must go on.
Oh my
No,
god.
sir.
I
You pretend like that was
pulled my hand off the spike, I grab a towel and try to keep going. And the band that I was with,
goodness.
Jeff Johnson.
I love Jeff.
Jeff's go, send the band. We've seen this, but it's not how it works. And then Jeff rushed me to the emergency room, and I didn't finish the show. And but crazy story. The doctor looks at this and goes, hey, I couldn't have put that spike, that nail, in a better place. Like, he's like, it slid between the bone and the muscle, missed all the tendons, ligaments, the blood vessels. So literally, they cleaned it out with a syringe, put gauze on it, and sent me home. That was it.
You're kidding
I just still don't
me,
understand
dude.
how you made it through 6 inches.
So what? Okay, so Jeff comes out,
Yeah.
and you're like, so you're like, guys, that's not how that's supposed to go. Or you're like,
I'm just moving on. I'm like,
you're like, hey, I'll do anything to entertain you
yes.
guys. I'm
I was like, to the next trick.
That's totally
I'm
what-
pulling out, dropping cards.
totally what David Blaine would have done.
Yes.
He's like, oh man.
And yeah, I don't know if they
Never
ever
did that trick
told.
again?
I tried it once before, and it was like it
Yeah.
was PTSD.
Yeah.
Dude.
But fun fact, so that 7 years later,
Yeah.
I did a trick where I tell that story, but I do it with like double-edged razor blades and an Oreo.
Yeah.
And then 7 years later, met a girl who was there that night.
Oh my gosh.
A year and a half later, I would end up hiring this girl to move to Washington to help us plant churches.
And now they're married. It's
And
crazy.
now we're married.
No.
I met my wife.
No, I was
True story.
joking.
No, that's
I was
actually-
kidding.
yeah.
That's what
My
happened.
wife,
She was there the night you.
was the girl who was on stage.
You're kidding me.
So we didn't obviously meet. 7 years later, reconnect. She's like, I was there. I was
Bro,
like, oh my
like
gosh,
somebody's like, you're like, somebody's preaching like, you don't know what it's like to have 9-inch nails through your hands and feet. And you're like, well, actually.
Yeah. Do you feel like
12
you can
inch.
empathize
Yeah.
better with Jesus?
What's that? Stigmata, dude.
Yeah,
You're
that's what the trick was
unbelievable.
called.
All right. Hey, we got to run. Drew Worsham,
Wow.
everybody. Thanks for jumping on with
This
us.
is awesome.
Be
Man,
curious.
huge
I'm
honor.
I'm so glad I was curious and asked that question. I'm kind of glad. I
wish
feel
I
a lot of
could, to
mixed
be honest.
mixed emotions. We love you guys. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to Becoming Something, where we promise to keep the conversation honest and real for young adults in their 20s and 30s. Every moment we live is training for a future moment, and that's why we do this podcast, because we want you to be prepared for everything that life is going to throw at you. Our hope with this podcast is that it would help you become all that God desires you to be. To find out more, visit becomingsomething.com.